Hello and welcome. I'm here with my countryman Marc Tobiasch from Germany. Hello Marc, good to have you. You are a mainstay in this area because you are always building creative new decks.
That's
and
right.
this is a tournament where you had more time to prepare. So how much did that change your preparation?
Yeah, quite a bit. Like usually at the beginning of a pro tour, you don't know what everybody's gonna play, so it's like more guesswork. And now there were like two main targets, which was obviously Temur and Mono Red, and then some control, I guess, and some tokens or whatever. But the metagame was defined, so you can look at specific weaknesses the metagame overall has and then attack those, which is pretty nice.
Okay, I know what you're playing. It's Temur, but it's not Temur Energy.
Not quite.
So we can take a look at the cards in your deck, and I really want to know, how do you get to a deck that plays Riddleform and Enigma Drake?
Well, basically, like I just said, the metagame is defined, and so you can look at weaknesses, and one of the weaknesses I found was that most of the decks are pretty weak to flyers. Like Mono Red is all on the ground, obviously, and Temur is mostly on the ground. Like they have Virtuoso, but we have some ways we'll get to later to handle that. But everything else, except Glorybringer, which costs 5, is like Bristling Hydra and like Rogue Refiners and 2/3s like Virtuosos on the ground and the Cubs on the ground. Like everything's on the ground.
Okay.
And they're bad at blocking flyers, basically. And these are the best cheap flyers in the format. And they go well together, obviously, since you would need instance, well,
yeah.
mostly
So what we can
mostly.
see is you want to play a lot of non-creature spells and you want to play a lot of instants and sorceries, and that's what we will see when we go through your deck. I find this really interesting because you're basically accepting to lose on the ground. You're not even racing on the ground. You're just saying, I'm taking things to the air and I want to win before Bristling Hydra becomes too big to kill me.
Yeah, exactly. But like Bristling Hydra is a 4-drop that attacks for 4 most of the time, maybe for 5. But so he's attacking for 5 or max basically on turn 5.
Mm-hmm.
And
How
like,
much does Enigma Drake attack for?
I think the most I've attacked for today was like 18.
18 in a single swing. Wow. Okay, let's go through your deck. Let's look at these instants and sorceries. Now, opt and crash to draw a card, attune with Ether, get your energy and a land, of course, Blossoming Defense, protect your creatures. What is the idea behind having these cards?
Well, the most important part is the 1 up here, so it's only 1 mana. So when you play Riddleform, you have to activate it in your turn, so you always have to play a spell pre-combat to activate it, unless you want to block with it, but most of the time you want to attack, obviously. And so like these 3 different cards are very good because they replace themselves, and you can just play them without needing anything. Like you don't need the opponent to have a creature or like a specific circumstance. You can just play it and attack.
So I assume you want to attack with Riddleform every single turn, if possible.
Pretty much.
Okay. Let's go to the next slide, because you have, of course, more spells than these.
And just one more.
Okay.
Because the crash through is actually really nice, because not only does it cycle, it also, what I said before with the Whirler Virtuoso, the only way Temur has to actually block on the ground, in the air, is the tokens.
So you give Enigma Drake Trample, for example.
And the Riddleform as well. So a lot of the time they're at like 6 or 7 life, but they can make 3 blockers, and then you give the Trample, and it's...
Okay. You play a bunch of removal. We know these from Temur decks, from Mono Red decks. Harness Lightning. How important is energy in your deck?
Not really. Like, basically I want to play green for attune mostly, because that way I can play less lands, and the lands are tunes, well, part of them. And so you get some free energy anyway, and then this kills Glorybringer, which is relevant because that's like the only other flyer. And it's just like, it's a very good card, obviously, so you kill their guys and hit in the air.
Mm-hmm. You have a relatively low creature count compared to some decks. Is the raid on Charted Course a problem, or is that not something that you're worried about?
Sometimes you play pre-combat and discard a spell to get +2/+0 on your Drake, which happens.
Also a bit of a number with Riddleform, right?
That's true. That comes in when you play like turn 2 Riddleform, turn 3 1 mana spell, attack, and then you can play it. So the raid actually, well, whatever raid, is not that big of a deal. Like you only have, you don't have that many creatures, it's true, but those you do have are very hard to kill. Mm-hmm. Like the 4 mana, the 4 toughness on the Drake is really important, and the 3 mana, so it doesn't die to Fatal Push.
Oh yeah,
and,
true.
And the Riddleform is like, they can't kill it if you don't want it to be killed.
It's sorcery. It's immune to sorcery speed removal.
That, and it's immune to Essence Scatter. And a lot of the time, like, they have 2 mana up, like Temur, for example, and they represent like Essence Scatter, Harness Lightning, or whatever. And then you play this, and they waste their mana. And then when you have Blossoming Defense, for example, like you can search for Blossoming Defense.
So basically, you're dictating the flow of the game.
Exactly. Like they can't kill your creatures if you don't want them to.
Let's continue down the road, because you do play other permanents as well. It would be really nice if it was just 4 Riddleforms and 4 Enigma Drakes.
Yeah, but there's a lot of removal floating around, and you can't always, like, basically you want to trade off your early guys, like mostly this, because this has to be killed every time.
This also has a big target on its head.
That's its job. Its job is catching some Harnessed Lightning or whatever, because then you just play your spells, and then you play the Drake, and then you keep the Blossoming Defense for the Drake, and everything else already traded off, so they only have one removal spell left.
So in a sense, you're almost pretending to be Temur Energy. They play like against Temur Energy, and then Enigma Drake comes down, and they are just looking at the board and maybe dead in 2 turns. Okay.
Yeah, basically. This is also nice because it triggers Riddleform. Like sometimes when you don't have one of the 1-mana spells and you want to like progress your board, but also want to trigger Riddleform, this is the best one, because you can just play it, activate your Riddleforms, and affect the board, which is pretty nice.
And that's almost impossible with instants and sorceries, because they don't stick on the board. So it doesn't, of course, help out Enigma Drake, but it is Chandra, Torch of Defiance, which is just an amazing card, of course. Okay, so pretending to be Temur Energy and then beating down with flyers. I think the next up is the mana base. Anything you want to add regarding the lands?
There's only 17 lands. Like most other decks play at least 22 or 26, depending.
So 5, 6, 7, that's like 6, 7 cards, spells, impactful spells that you get to put in your deck that other decks don't have.
Exactly. So it seems like it's an all-in aggro deck kind of, because like you have very low curve, but it kind of plays out in a way that you can grind your opponents out as well. Since you draw cards with like Chandra, Sharded Cores, and when the game goes long, you usually draw less lands than your opponent, so you have a bit more spells.
Which is a little bit like the Delver philosophy, for example, in Legacy, where you say, I have all these powerful cards, but they cost 1 and 2 mana, and I have Brainstorm, so I'm actually winning because my threat density is so much higher.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay,
Even though I don't play a lot of threats, those I do play are very high impact, and I can find them more often. So.
Okay, thank you very much. What is the one tip you would want to give players that try out this deck?
Well, make sure you know where you are at the race. Like sometimes you have to block with the Riddleforms, but most of the time you don't. And I think the most important thing is make sure you have an Enigma Drake standing in the end. Like try to trade off for the removal before, or keep Blossoming Defense.
Okay, so that's the thing you have to watch out for. Enigma Drake is your winning player, your VIP. There was Marc Tobiasch from Team Catharsis, one of the most innovative deck builders on the Pro Tour, if I may say so. Thank you, Marc, and good luck.